Welcome to part 4 of our Adult Ministries Digital Discipleship and Evangelism webinar series with digital strategist, Mrs. Jamie Dom. And God is really adding value to our ministries through her ministry. Tonight's topic is the role of distributors. I'm J. Alfred Johnson II, your Director of Adult Ministries for North American Division. Before Jamie comes to us, let's have a word of prayer. Loving Lord, thank you so much for this technology that you've blessed us with, especially during these challenging times. And we also thank you for honoring Jamie Dom with the gifts that are aligned specifically to our need. And we thank you for her kindness and her liberality in sharing those gifts. Now be upon us with a special baptism of your spirit tonight. I pray that you would be in her mind and give her the ability to enunciate those things that will most specifically meet our needs right now. This is our prayer. We thank you for hearing and we thank you for answering. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Jamie, we're looking forward to what God has in store for us tonight. You go right ahead, our sister.
Thank you so much. And again, it's always a pleasure. And you guys, for those of you that have been with us the whole time, thank you for sticking with us. This is a lot of information. It's a lot of ideas, but we have to reframe how we view the time spent in the digital mission field and how we even view the digital space, that we view it as a wide open mission field with a lot of untapped potential. And there's a place for everyone in this model. So previously we discussed the creator model and the engager model. So those people who create content, so content evangelism, those community builders. And today we're going to go over the distributors. So if you have members who aren't sure, like if they really fit into the other two categories, this is a role everyone can participate in. Because remember, it doesn't matter if you have 4 connections or 4 followers or 40,000. If you are online, if you have a cell phone, if you have an email, if you're on any social media platform, you have influence, and how you use that influence really, really matters. So let's dig right into the presentation. As always, if you have questions, if you have reflections, if you have thoughts, please share them throughout the duration of this presentation. If you're just joining us for the first time tonight, be sure to check out the NAD Adult Ministries website. They have all the archived videos, so you can actually go back and catch all the sessions. And I believe the PowerPoints are also available for you to download. So ask your questions. We'll have a time at the end for actually a live demonstration and a Q&A section. And you can actually ask questions about any of the content that we have covered so far. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to ask a question. And this might be heretical to ask, but are we too focused on church attendance? At least on the short term with COVID, our new reality. So there's this really, great quote that I came across recently by Rockefeller, and it said, if necessity is the mother of invention, discontent is the father of progress. So I hope we're discontented. I hope we're uncomfortable with the status quo, because I believe God is moving us into a new direction. Because it used to be that to hear the gospel message, people would have to travel sometimes long distances to one location to hear a single preacher. Now we can browse preachers on YouTube from the comfort of our home. And until recently, the barrier to entry in publishing was so high that only top theologians, pastors, and select authors could even get their writings and their ideas and their interpretation and their testimonies in public hands. But with the advent of social media, vlogs, blogs, podcasts, we are all publishers now. And we can all be distribution centers for within our areas of digital influence for the gospel. So basically, in Century, modern technologies have decentralized the message. And so the role of the distributors in the digital discipleship and evangelism model is to share these messages using the digital tools of their choice. So whatever that is for you, whether it's text, whether it's email, whether it's a social media platform, whatever it is, you can share, because ultimately we have the gospel, the greatest story ever told, the message of Christ's birth, life, self-sacrificing death, resurrection, and soon return. As the Adventist Church, We also have the three angels message sent to all God's children in every nation, tribe, tongue, and people. And we, as a people, have the gift of prophecy and the guidance of Ellen G. White. We have also the ministry of healing. We do not have a message problem. We have a distribution problem and a little bit of a packaging one, as I talked about in the creator role. But mostly we have a distribution problem. Our messages are not present in the spaces where people are seeking answers. We're not out there with a loud voice. We have 20 million members worldwide. If we were all sharing messages, we could reach all the ends of the earth in the digital space. Because remember, what happens in the digital space, those messages we interact with in the digital spaces are not confined to digital spaces. Because I firmly believe that the next great awakening will be a digital one. And we are facing essentially the biggest communication shift in 500 years, because 500 years ago, the Gutenberg press was developed and it revolutionized the world and the gospel. It dramatically reduced the cost of printing and sped up the process. It altered society through unrestricted circulation and information and increase in literacy. Sound familiar? The printing of the Gutenberg Bible marked the start of the so-called Gutenberg Revolution and played a key role in the Protestant Reformation. But here's the problem, is until COVID, our church really hadn't changed communication strategies in 30 years. So COVID has done more than all the digital advocates of the last 20 years. It has done more in the last 10 or 12 months than any of us who have been, beating these drums. And I believe it's God using it. He's closing the church doors so we can figure out how to utilize these tools and technologies in a powerful way, because his kingdom is 24/7 and we should be agents in kingdom building 24/7. Now, what that means is we must adapt and we must be discontent with the status quo. It's not enough to just be streaming your service. Are you positioning it for findability? Have you leveraged your congregation as a reach vehicle for souls? Is every member involved? We must be discontent with the status quo. We must push forward. We must, re-envision what church is going to look like in a hybrid society of digital and analog spaces. But of course, attention cannot be assumed. It must be earned. So while it's never been easier to communicate, we have to cut through the noise. We have to be relevant. And if you have questions about that, go back to the content evangelism sections of this presentation, or check out the content evangelism sections of of the book. So we have to think about how to strategically position and package our content. Sorry, my slide didn't change. As I said, I firmly believe the next great awakening will be a digital one, but it's got to take every single member acting as digital disciples to share our faith and spread the three angels' messages with a loud voice. My friends, we could be that loud voice. And remember what I talked about before. This is a holistic model. This is not analog versus digital. Every member is a part of this method, because again, it's one thing to get people to come in the door to share our messages online. It's another thing to get them to stay. And we have to get them to stay through the relationships, through those meaningful connections. So no one is left out of this model. But if you are online, if your members have email, if they have smartphones and can text, if they're on WhatsApp, if they're on any social media platform, I don't even know, maybe they're still on MySpace. Who knows? I know some of us are a little behind the times. Use your influence to share the gospel. And that's what the distributor role is about, because we can share truth through these powerful technologies. And I believe that this is our generation's great commission. I know that's often overused, but I truly believe this. We have just unbelievable opportunity right now. And again, as I've said many times, the mission field is wide open. Now, we know that faith in general is actually on decline in Western society. We have become the mission field. So instead of hopping on a plane to reach people where they are, we can now go online and use the platforms they use to share hope and wholeness in a way that is accessible and comfortable for them. Because to reach the world, we have to reach our neighbors. Because remember, our neighbors, when we think of this holistic model, not only can we share the gospel with them, we can connect with them in digital spaces and we can connect with them every day of the week, but we can actually minister directly in their lives. So the question I have for you is, how well do you really know your neighbors in your community? Are you using those digital tools and technologies to connect with others, to build community and create those opportunities for sharing the gospel? And we'll talk about digital door knocking in a moment. Now, as I said, the mission foiled, it is next door and it is just as legitimate. We must reframe. I can't tell you how many times I speak to particularly young people and I tell them, this is a mission field. This is legitimate. Use your talents. You are digital natives. You can go into these spaces and it is meaningful. It is impactful. It is legitimate. So many people are just waiting for permission. No matter if you have a small congregation of 50 or a large congregation of 1,000, if every member was and empowered and equipped to share the message in the spaces where they occupy a good portion of their day, we can make a huge difference. And that starts with just reframing how we view ministry and how we view these digital tools and technologies. Because remember, God asked Moses, "What is in your hand?" And that tool was a staff, neither good nor bad. But with God in the mix, it performed miracles and it led God's children out of bondage. So to today, every single one of us has a digital tool or technology in our hand. It can be used. And it doesn't matter if you can only reach one person or 40,000. What matters is that you use it. But why is it so hard? Now, I believe this is by the devil's design. People are busy. We're overworked. We're overloaded. We're overwhelmed. We're trying to keep up constantly with a growing to-do list. Many people are just trying to get by and get through the day. And I believe in this time of crisis, that has only gotten worse. How many of us feel this way? I know I feel this way, constantly juggling and running back and forth. And, we always have to focus on our quiet time so that we can be spiritually fed, because as soon as the day begins, it's a never ending race. So why would we expect our target audiences to be any different? So perhaps part of the reason we lack community is because we do not have time or energy left for our neighbors. The devil wants to keep people busy enough that they don't have time for each other or for God. So among the chaos, our younger generations actually feel safe behind our screens. Remember, they spend at least 3 times as much socializing in digital spaces as they do in person. There's a degree of distance and anonymity. Our culture is more connected than ever before, but when it comes to interpersonal relationships, we're struggling with disconnect. We're even meeting potential spouses online now because it's easier than trying to meet them in real life. So what does this mean? This means that I think as a church, however we feel about it, we actually have to lean into this change because we can't change it. But what we can do is we can package content, we can build communities, we can reclaim these networks, these communities of support systems, and then we can create those opportunities to share the gospel after we've built these relationships. And again, this is following Jesus's model. So Jesus sought first to fulfill people's spiritual needs, their physical needs, their emotional needs. Then he bid them come and follow. So the distributor role is the bid and come and follow. It is the sharing of the gospel that comes after you've built that relationship with your community. So we can engage in something called digital door knocking. Now, the thing with digital door knocking is it's hard to actually knock on someone's door. And this is even prior to COVID. Even if we already know them, like it had become normal nowadays to actually like send messages and text and even like ask permission before you even show up at a neighbor's door. We can't just show up unexpectedly at people's houses. So we add in this need for physical or social distancing, and it becomes clear that the old way of evangelizing can no longer be the primary method. But you don't have to knock on a stranger's door to share your faith. Now, I remember as a kid being excited if somebody randomly stopped by the house. That was really cool. That was exciting. Nowadays, unless you're the UPS man or Amazon Prime, what are you doing at my door? Right? Our culture has dramatically shifted. But the good news is we don't actually have to knock on people's doors, and we actually have a lot more opportunity when we think of the fact that people spend 9 to 18 hours a day behind a screen. Oftentimes, that's more than when they're home and available and free to talk. So, you know that the burden of content is not on you. You don't have to create content. You just have to share it as a distributor. So, when we think about canvassers who go around selling books, they're not usually the authors of the books. Like you don't see Clifford Goldstein, knocking on doors and trying to sell his books. We have 9 to 18 hours a day that people spend behind a screen a day, that we could be sharing these messages, that we could be filling their news feed with these messages of hope and wholeness for them to dig more. And the great thing about social media is it allows us to share our faith and engage with our community when it's most convenient for them. And it allows our audience to self-select whether or not they want to engage. So for someone like me who's a mother, sometimes my availability to engage with spiritual content is at like 3 in the morning. Sometimes it's at 2:30 in the afternoon, or like 5:17. It's random throughout the day, but whenever we're bored or we have a moment to kill, we scroll through our news feeds, we scroll through, whatever, we check our email. That's a lot of opportunity that we have to engage with spiritual content. But my news feed isn't full of spiritual content. It's full of all kinds of other things. But if we, again, work together to actually start sharing content in a big and intentional way, we can make a big difference. Now, digital door knocking is when you share spiritual content on your social media profiles or through messaging and email to create an opportunity for people to engage with you about your faith. This content can be anything. It can be a picture, a text, a video, a vlog, whatever. It doesn't have to be something you create yourself. But it is helpful if you include with it, like some kind of personalized message about how it impacted you, or how it made you feel or think or something. Your friends and followers can scroll past it or choose to engage with it when it's convenient for them. Given that a lot of people could be stuck at home right now, extra time in their hands because of COVID, because they're not going to soccer games, and they're limited in other capacities, or some future crisis might happen, social media is for many people their main source of entertainment, information, and connection. There's a lot of opportunity right now to share and reach people everywhere using these technologies. But what this means is success can no longer be measured by counting people in a building, but rather we must consider whether or not we're building a kingdom. We have to ask, how many times have I shared the gospel this week? How many meaningful engagements have I have I found ways to share my faith in a practical and real way? So essentially what digital door knocking is it is the new word of mouth, and word of mouth have always been the strongest marketing mechanism for getting the word out about a product or a cause. People always trust the opinion of their friends and family over what a brand says about itself. And that makes sense, right? Like I care more about the experience that my friend has with an organization or a product or an idea than what the brand is saying for itself, because I know that person, I trust that person, I have a relationship with this person. This is why reviews and testimonies are so powerful. So we actually participate in word of mouth marketing every time we share about a product or experience with others, and we don't even realize it. Many people don't even realize, like, we're brand ambassadors for so many different things on a daily basis. We might share it in person, but word of mouth marketing nowadays often takes place on social media and through messaging applications or texting. So we do this constantly, you guys, when it comes to all of our other interests, whether that's music, whether that's, hair care products or show or whatever, and we don't even realize it. But in terms of sharing the gospel, this just means for many people, do the thing you do all the time, but do it for the kingdom. In other words, here's that word again, intentional. Be intentional with what you share and who you share it with. So ways to distribute, for those of you that are new to this, I never want to assume anything. You could forward emails. You can text people invitations. You can share your churches or another ministry's content to your social media profiles. Of course, you can always live stream events or your Bible study or whatever. You can even just engage with ministry content online, and that actually helps increase the organic reach of that. So if like you like a post on Instagram, or you like a post on Facebook, or you love it, that actually increases the reach of that particular post. You can post to community groups like Nextdoor. You can certainly find digital ways to connect with neighbors and then share your faith. And then, of course, even if you just want to be most passive lowest bar, just follow Christian groups online because you'll actually help increase their digital influence and weight in these platforms. So these are just some easy ways that individuals can actually participate as part of the larger church. Now, there's this thing called a pod, and nearly everyone is on social media. So even if your congregation is predominantly older, a good percentage of them are most likely on Facebook. Don't assume they're not. Ask and find out what platforms they actually use. So, one of the things you guys might want to do for your church is to actually do some surveys and just kind of take an inventory to figure out where your members are spending their time. So, even if churches do really well with analog distribution, but we need to leverage digital social influence of our members because social influence is now both digital and analog. So even if you think about like a small church of 50, if half of its members were on social media and connected to just 50 people within the community, that's a potential reach of 1,250 people within your community. This is a low estimate, but you get the idea. Most people have an average of, I think, 400 followers or friends on Facebook. So it's usually much larger. You can train your membership to function like a social media pod, which basically means just train them to engage and share your church's content on a weekly basis as a form of evangelism and outreach, and champion them and tell them about the results and encourage them to keep doing this because this is a really, really easy way for them to help with the mission and the vision of the church. And essentially, a pod, it comes from like the term like a dolphin pod. It's basically a group working together to support a cause. And so essentially, the members of a pod agree to comment, like, and share each other's content. So in this case, your congregation would agree to comment, like, and share your church's content, probably on a weekly basis. Some really super aggressive pods will do it within an hour. But I think for most churches, option C is probably the most realistic, that if your church members understand that as part of their work, their ministry work, they can actually share their church's content on a weekly basis. They can forward emails, they can text information to people, they can share videos, that this is a form of ministry and that they can be digital disciples by doing this. And this is where we think of your congregation becoming a reach vehicle for souls. Because a congregation that understands the value of participating in ministry this way could serve as a powerful means of expanding the reach of your messages. To realize this potential, they must be equipped and encouraged. In other words, this type of ministry must be legitimized. You must work with them to reframe how they view their time and their influence spent in digital spaces. You can determine your members' strengths and train them to use those strengths. You can take times and meetings during services. Okay, choir rehearsals later down the line after COVID, but teach them to, through prioritizing technology, teach them how to use it. Take time to show them through hands-on training or virtual trainings. Ask them to take out their phones and take action in the moment. Oftentimes with my own church, I'll do this when I do the welcome. Is our church for so many years had this culture where during the welcome we would get up and we would shake hands and hug each other and talk to each other. So instead, when we do a welcome for church service, I ask people to reach out to others using digital tools and technologies, to take that 5 minutes we would have spent talking with each other to connect with other members of the church. You can even empower a designated person to post about key events to community apps like Nextdoor. So if you're going to do like a toy drive or a food drive or something like that related to COVID or some kind of community service, you can post there. Encourage them to, of course, mark that they're going to events or digital events, to encourage them to invite others, encourage them to engage with important content on your Facebook page. Tell them when to expect emails and repeatedly ask them to forward. So people have to hear a message 7 times before they take action. So if you're weekly reminding them to forward videos, to forward messages, to invite others to watch the service, they'll start remembering to do it. So we have to be consistent and persistent. Send out weekly emails with links to content that you want members to engage with or share. And then keep them posted on how efforts are going. Like, cheerlead them and get them excited about how many more views the videos are getting, or what have you. And just get them excited about digital discipleship through your excitement. Now, here's actually a holiday test case. This, of course, is pre-COVID, but we have our local church is predominantly older, and we have about 200 members. So it's not a mega church. Maybe it's more like 150. What we had been doing for our holiday programs, um, we started doing these like holiday pageants, and the DC area has a lot of competition. You don't have to come to view what we have. There's tons of churches, there's tons of programs, there's all kinds of stuff. So what we did, to go beyond targeting the community with social advertising, I also spent a lot of time just rallying the membership to hand out flyers, to forward emails, and to share on social media, text people, etc. This is an older congregation, but these people are dedicated. They have a heart for ministry, and we're a church community that really helps each other. Like, these people moved my wedding the week of my wedding because the venue wasn't available. Like, they pull together and they really help each other out. And this was something that was very new for them, very new and out of their comfort zone. I encouraged them through the first time we did this. It was a 6-week campaign. I encouraged them throughout, rallied behind them, told them about the results, how many people had registered, because we could only have so many people in the venue. So we had free tickets that people could register for. And so by the time of the event, we had 400 out of the 500 tickets already reserved. And then for the day of the event, we actually packed the house. Now, people didn't have to choose us, but by and large, most people who reserved tickets online, because there was a little survey, said that they heard about the event from a friend or family member via email or social media, meaning they literally were hearing about it through word of mouth, through digital tools and technologies. It wasn't the flyers that were working. It was neighbors inviting neighbors through text or email or whatever. And every event we did after that first event, in which I rallied the troops every week to get them to share, it was basically sold out. Always free tickets, but reserved out before the actual event. Now, of course, we haven't done those since COVID, but it's something really exciting that we were able to do. And it was really exciting to see what a older congregation could do when encouraged. And so if you're thinking, oh, my church is older, they don't really have, the right stuff or whatever for this, I would encourage you not to underestimate them and actually give them an opportunity. Now, we took a holistic approach, and we actually had greeters at the doors for these events. We gave out special gifts like Steps to Christ, and the cost was shared by individual members who were involved. Now, after the event, probably the most important thing we did is we actually sent a survey follow-up to gather further feedback to better understand our audience and to let them know that we valued their opinion. This allowed us to actually understand even better how people heard about the event. And in this case, we know it was mostly invitation by friends and family through digital tools, but it also let us know how many non-Adventists attended the program. So in this case, about 25% of respondents were not Adventist or were completely unchurched. And so this actually gave us an opportunity for service. So thinking back to that community engagement role, that community building role, that relationship role, we added probably the most important question to the follow-up survey, and that is there anything we could do for you? And this really opened the door for a lot of ministry opportunities. And all we used was basically the power of the people, a lot of encouragement, and then a free SurveyMonkey account. Now, another way a church can actually magnify its reach is through partnerships. So, active social media partnerships are a key to expanding your reach and even your branding. So, we know that social media is designed for community building. So you can create and actually cultivate online relationships with other ministries and organizations. And honestly, I would love to see churches starting to work together and to kind of work more collaboratively to leverage each other's strengths and to work off of each other in sort of a partnership program. So you can find organizations to build partnerships with either by location or topic. It's likely that you already have partnerships in place for creating events. One example could be if your congregation has like a thriving food bank ministry and another church has like an evangelistic series, you two could work together through using digital tools and technologies to promote an online evangelism event. And then for those that need help, that need those services, then they could also be directed to the food pantry. So you could really start thinking creatively about breaking down silos between churches as well, or other ministries in the area for helping to attend to the felt needs of the people that are also engaging with your messages. Now, you can magnify the value of the partnerships that you already have for events by partnering with your digital communications campaign for the event. So what this means is ask them to share about the event or your program through their social media channels. And you want to make sure that that's also mutual. Like you'll share about them and they'll share about you. But it's actually a really easy way to scale up and reach more people, because if you have just a couple of partnerships and they have a few thousand people online in the community and they share about an event or what you're doing, then that's an easy, free way to reach more people. Now, some of you might be asking, well, who can I really work with? Most of the time, your events, your programs, your service events don't happen in a silo, but rather involve several partners. I have found, that by promoting with them online, you can reach out to just even 10 contacts that have a small social media of a following of 1,000. Your message can suddenly have the potential to reach up to 10,000 people at no cost. So the more contacts you reach out, the bigger the fan base is. You can see how your reach can grow exponentially. So the people you can partner with are, of course, sponsors, donors, organizations and ministries already involved, participants, speakers. If someone's coming to speak for your church, even if it's just virtually, ask them to promote the event. Ask them to share on their social media channels about their upcoming speaking opportunity and maybe the event that you're hosting. Local churches and related organizations can also cross promote this way. And of course, different levels of the denomination. So in this case, maybe you can share stuff that the conference is doing and the conference can share what the local church is doing and vice versa. So just think ways of making it easy for each other to share. If you want someone to share for you, it really, really helps if you actually create the post for them, send it to them in a Word doc with an image, so they don't have to think too much about it. They can just quick copy, paste, and share, and you have yourself a social media partnership. So at this time, we're going to take a brief commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the role of paid advertising and digging a little bit into that. And then once we're done with that, we'll take another break. We'll do Q&A and we'll do a live demonstration.
The Amazon Echo Dot is a hands-free voice control device that uses far-field voice recognition for voice-activated digital assistants. The North American Division Adult Ministries Department, with the aid of very talented Alexa programmers, has developed an Alexa skill for the Adult Bible Study Guide. This resource for the Echo Dot is in response to today's demanding, fast-paced society, delivering on-demand audio sharing and the daily Adult Bible Study Guide. As the program develops, there will be more commands and features programmed into the Adult Bible Study Guide Alexa skill. The North American Division Adult Ministries Department is proud to present this innovative tool for Bible study. This skill is now available in the Alexa Skill Catalog on Amazon.com.
Hello, and thank you for still being with me. We have a question from YouTube, and it's a really good question that I want to take a moment to address before we go on to the next section. So it's from Allison Down, and what she's asking is, should a group change their platform from time to time as they consider security? For example, WhatsApp has changed some of its security settings, and so now the administrator wants them to change to another program. How important is security to determining which she has which sites we follow, but I assume which platforms you're on. So my response to this is probably not going to be what you expect, because if we all watched The Social Dilemma, that documentary, we would all be convinced to run screaming from the digital mission field. So what I would say is this. When has security or danger ever kept us from the mission field, from the physical mission field? The reality is it hasn't. Social media is not secure. Facebook, they all sell your data. Google sells your data. Even Google Maps knows where you are. Amazon knows everything about you. Amazon knows your Adventist. It's the issue is we need to go where the people are. And so, if you have like a private group that's like a prayer group or whatever, and it's a small group of 10 or 15 people, you can certainly be more mobile and you can switch to different platforms and stuff if there is a security concern, especially if it's a prayer group and you're sharing some private information and stuff like that as people share their testimonies or whatever struggles they're going through. That's slightly different than when we're talking about using platforms evangelistically. So private chats, stuff like that, small groups, you can certainly be very nimble and adaptive and to move around to different platforms. But I will say this, no matter what platform you go to, it's not secure as you think it is. There is always a security issue. And I'm just going to go back to what I said before is, danger has never kept us from the physical mission field. When we want to talk about meeting people where they are, that really means going to where they spend their time. And so where they spend their time are apps like Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. They're on Google searching for things, even though, we have lots of concerns right now for Google and censorship and, throttling different websites and different ideas. It's really a matter of going where the people are. So when we're talking about reaching out to people and building sort of that public evangelistic mindset, I would say security should not be a deterrent. Now, when it comes to your own personal use of certain social media platforms, not for ministry, that's a different matter. But when we're talking about ministry, I'll just say it one more time. We need to go where the people are. Now, she did also ask, are you suggesting other partners can be other denominations? That's not really the first part of, not necessarily, but it can be. So if you have a church near you that happens to have like a service or something that your church can't provide, so maybe they're doing a big toy drive, that's not what your church is doing. I don't think it's harmful to promote what another ministry is doing, even if they are from a different denomination. That's not necessarily my first pick, but I'm not against it either. So with that, I hope that answers your question. I'm going to dig into the second part of the presentation, and we're going to start talking about advertisement. Now, for some people, this is where we go into a little bit more advanced. So the first part of the distributor role is really something everybody can participate in, and that's just using your influence to share the gospel through the tools and technologies that make sense for you and the ones that you're using. So whatever it is you're on, go for it. If you're a Reddit user, use it for the kingdom. Whatever from your own. Now we're going to talk about, and this is more from a church perspective, this is more from an organizational perspective as well, is the place of paid advertisements. Now, I realize this, that most local churches and ministries have limited budgets. So we want to make the most of our limited ad dollars. And so you want to build your advertising on top of your organic distribution mechanism, meaning don't spend money until you have an organic distribution mechanism, meaning your church is being leveraged as a reach vehicle for souls. Your members are sharing, they're forwarding emails. You have email in place. You maybe even have a texting in place. You have a content strategy and engagement strategy for your social media platform. So you have all these foundations in place. Then on top of your organic distribution mechanism, you do, paid advertising, because paid ads are the most successful when they are accompanied by strong digital distribution. So they enable you to reach further than you can organically, and they actually allow you to target specific groups of people for outreach efforts. So an example of that would be for the church that I'm partnering with right now to launch an entirely digital evangelistic series. The church congregation, it's a large congregation of about 900. They're being empowered and equipped to share about the series through all their social media platforms, because we could reach up to 250,000 of people a week if their church was truly engaged. And then on top of that, we're actually using targeted ads to reach unchurched people within 50 miles of the physical church, because they want to be able to eventually have them come into the church. They have a large food pantry, and they have these other services that can actually be allowed, that can be also leveraged to minister to the physical and the felt needs of the people as well. So it's a good to have a mix and to build it upon your organic distribution and what your members can actually do. Now, some people would say, why spend any money? Social media platforms are technically a business that needs to make money, therefore they limit unpaid reach. That's why paid advertising comes into play, because you're being throttled and you don't even know it. This means that less than 5 to 10% of your fan base, depending on the platform, will naturally receive your post in your news feeds. This is why it's also super important to train them to act as a pod, so that they are proactively going to your social media profiles to share content, because they're not necessarily going to have it show up in their news feeds. And this is how you can kind of counteract this, by promoting key posts to reach more of your fan base, and by placing ads to expand your reach to new audiences. So another example could be Vacation Bible Study. Facebook actually allows you to target parents by the age of their children. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can do to reach targeted groups once you've kind of covered the organic distribution part. Now, to get started, of course, you want to determine who your targeted audience is, who you want to reach. You want to make sure you do this before you spend any money. Determine your budget, how much you can spend, and then you want to start with a test and expand based on results. So if you have, let's say you have, I don't know, $100 that you can spend to promote your Vacation Bible Study, start with a $10 or $15 test of your ad, just to see how it performs, to make sure you get the message right, and then you can expand based on that. Because what I don't want to see people do is to put all their money, all their financial resources into one basket, and then maybe the ad didn't quite strike a chord. Remember previously we talked about how to write a strong social media post with images, with text, with call to action. You want to incorporate all of that to make sure you have a really strong ad. Test the ad, see how it performs, make sure you're reaching the right people, and then you expand from there. Now, some people will ask, most people will ask, what's appropriate to spend? To promote, to how much does it cost to promote an event or a program or resources online, whatever it is? Well, the beauty of social media is that the answer depends on what you can afford. So that's the good news. Social media works really well for small budgets and nonprofits, and a little can go a really long way, especially if you're really good at targeting and your messaging. But it's important to spend some money. As your confidence grows and your familiarity with reaching your target audience grows, you can increase your budget as needed. Ultimately, your budget depends on the size of your goals and your purpose. Now, in the next section, we're going to talk about those foundations of digital strategy, talk about purpose, and casting that mission, that vision in the digital space. That's tied into you've got to understand that before you place any ads. A small local ministry may only need to spend about $300 a year. That's how much I spend on my church's social media advertising when we were doing events and certain programs and stuff like that prior to COVID. a nationwide campaign. So if you're trying to reach people across the country, you're going to have to spend at least $3,000 to create some kind of impact. But if you're just trying to teach, reach your neighbors within 15 miles of your church to let them know about your vacation Bible study or your food pantry or whatever service you're offering, you can do that for like $20. It's really, really affordable. Make sure though, when you do start advertising, you have a very clear objective about what you're trying to achieve. This way you can learn and you can maximize results as you go. Now, some of you might be asking, well, not all of us have a digital marketing strategist at our church and who's willing to actually pay for the advertisement. So this is where, if you're looking for the monies, if you don't already have it in your budget or your marketing budget, or, you may not be doing print stuff right now because of COVID and sort of the weariness around print materials. You can actually redirect that money. So businesses that must balance their budgets or make a profit put most of their effort behind what's working. So now is a really good time to strategically think about what is really going to work for long-term goals, what isn't going to work, how can we reconfigure our budgets, and how can we pool our best resources and people into efforts with the most potential. So another option, of course, is to find individuals willing to fund social advertising as an outreach initiative or personal ministry. As I said before, I personally fund my church's social media advertising and their website hosting. Church leadership has over time learned to value it, and so we're leveraging it more for a variety of purposes. But there's different opportunities. One of the clients that I'm working with right now, they're actually using their evangelistic budget right now, because normally they would be hosting on site with like food and a whole bunch of other things involved. So they're not spending any of that money. So they're actually redirecting the money towards digital evangelism efforts and advertising. Now, I will say this: do not place an ad until you have a clear understanding of what you are trying to achieve and who you are trying to reach. Because as I've said before, a lot of people go on social media because they know we need to be on social media. But in order to achieve your goals, you have to have a clear understanding of what you're trying to lead, what you're trying to achieve. And then once you have your mission, your vision, your goals, are you trying to get more people to submit prayer requests? Are you trying to engage with the community? Are you trying to find people who are food insecure? Are you trying to find ways to minister to young families? Really understand what your objective is before you ever place an ad. And for your church, it might be that your youth pastor or a young pastor that has joined your team, they can be in charge of this like digital ministry, or you have a member that has some communications background that can volunteer for this. There's a variety of opportunities there, looking for the skill sets. Because again, I don't believe that this should all be more work for the pastor to do. Many hands make work light. Find people in your congregation who are talented and skilled. I'm sure you have somebody who has good communication skills who can take on a challenge like this if you choose to do paid advertising. There's various types of ads. As of 2021, we are going to take a sneak peek into the Ads Manager because I know a lot of people haven't seen these. I'm going to focus more on Facebook because it still has the most sophisticated social media advertising platform that small organizations can use. It actually enables us to do really detailed targeting for small budgets on Facebook, Instagram, and even third-party websites. Some of these ad types are also relevant to other platforms if you choose to do advertising there. Now, the technologies and, of course, the platforms may change, but these types will still be relevant regardless of the platform. So you want to choose the types of ads that are going to align with your goals and your key performance indicators. In other words, your measures for success. So you might want to just promote your page to create awareness within the community, to gain a following. You can also do website ads that will direct people to your website to maybe sign up to receive more information, to ask a question, submit a prayer request, whatever it is you might want to do, or download some information for like a health ministry or something that you're doing. You can actually target members and those who follow your page to improve internal communication. You can target your subscriber email list. This is an advanced feature. You can increase video views if you have sort of evangelistic video series that you're pushing out. You can target people who may be interested in. You can increase events response, messenger ads. So one of the things we're going to do with the client that I'm working with down in Florida is, after the first candidate conversation video goes out there, we're actually going to use that to ask people to submit more questions or prayer requests. So you can do these messenger ads, which are pretty cool. You can do lead generation, meaning people just provide their email address in order to get like a free download, a free downloadable Bible study, or maybe a health ministry pamphlet or something that's relevant to your target audience. And of course, you can also do retargeted messages, meaning you can follow up with people who've already engaged with your content, who've watched your video, who've already visited your website, with more content to help keep moving them through their experience with you. And you guys should be able to download this presentation. All of this information is also in the book, Digital Discipleship and Evangelism. If you want to dig deeper, if you're at a point where you feel like you can do some advertising, there's basic targeting on Facebook. Now, in our 6th session, we're actually going to go really deep into understanding your audience. And so this is going to touch upon a little bit of that, but you have sort of those surface level demographics that you can target people by in Facebook. So you got location, age, gender, language. Then you can even dig down into interest. So you can choose multiple to reach people's interest in a specific topic. You can target people based on connection or behavior. So you can even target people based on their occupation. So you can be really, really creative with the different groups you're trying to reach, but you first must really understand them. And so before placing any ads, I would strongly encourage that you also go through our Understanding Your Audience for Effective Communication presentation. And there's actually a downloadable worksheet with that too that can help you understand your audience. Now, remember that the right message is the one that resonates with the felt need. So when it comes to your messaging, when it comes to your programming, whatever you're doing online, make sure you're addressing a pain point or a felt need within your target audience. Because remember, these are the drivers, these are the motivating factors. This is where Jesus met the people, and then he bid them come and follow. Strive to really understand those in your community and tailor your outreach efforts and messages accordingly. Remember, you want to show empathy first. You want to validate their experiences, be genuine, and offers a practical solution. Because remember, people are loyal to brands that help them solve problems or, come to practical solutions. And again, I believe the church should be the leader in people care and this type of community care. Do the research, create content and opportunities that meet these needs of the people where they are in their spiritual journey. And because at the end of the day, you can have the best targeting and the most well-crafted post, but if the content or the product is tone deaf to the real needs of the people that you're trying to reach, your ads will fail. And so this is just an example of sort of an equation I use to create messages that will connect with people, where you have the empathy, you validate them. Marriage is hard. We're here to help. Join us. Your first call to action for a free marriage program where you'll learn practical tips for improving your marriage, offering a solution. Click here to register in advance for your free book, another call to action, and an incentive. This would be a powerful ad. I've actually run ads like this, and it was very successful. Now, I will say this, a lot of marketers will come in and they will dazzle people with vanity metrics. You want to make sure that when you're placing an ad or, whatever, that you are strategizing for impact, because many of us get caught up in like just how many followers we have. But remember, it's not about how many people are following you online. The real question is, are people growing closer to Jesus because of your digital strategy? So your video may only receive 200 views, but if 200 people showed up for a Bible study, most of us would be ecstatic. So think of every view, comment, share, download, response as a real person who has been influenced by your content and your messages. You can use Facebook Pixels. We dig deep into this in the book as well. It's basically just a small snippet of code that is placed on your website for tracking, similar to Google Analytics if you're familiar with that, but it's specifically for Facebook. So this is what this allows you to do, is to actually follow up with people who've come to your website or come to specific pages on your website. So sort of like if you've ever looked for, let's say, a lampshade on Amazon, and then that lampshade follows you around the internet, it's the same idea. So it allows you to collect information on people that allow you to develop more effective ads that appeal to that person's specific interest, while because you're being so targeted, you actually save money. And again, there's always links down here to, if you want to dig a little bit deeper. And then a practical application of this would be to remind engaged visitors to your health series page to download or request a free health book or something that you might be offering, or a free cooking class, or whatever you guys are up to. You may also, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but this is just a slide for you to look at. It's also in the book. But if you download the presentation, take a close look at this slide and try to create some of these in your Facebook Ads Manager account. These custom audiences allow you to strategically target certain types of people who are more likely to respond to your content and invitations. Once these are set up, Facebook actually dynamically builds these audiences for your targeting ad campaigns over time. So these are considered more warm audiences because of the relationship to you. You can also do things like create lookalike audiences. You can even go colder or broader for wider outreach efforts. And you can just keep these audiences, once you build them, saved in your Ads Manager account for easy access when you're setting out future campaigns. And so in this, just to say, like, the coldest audience, and honestly, mega churches do this all the time because they have just a ridiculous budget and they'll spend thousands of dollars blasting everybody with their ads. It's not a good marketing strategy, but occasionally you may want to do a cold audience, which is like everybody within 5 miles of your church. It can even be reduced further for densely populated areas. So I don't know, for example, let's say that you're in Texas and your church has set up warming spaces for people. You could actually place an ad for everyone within like 2 miles, or if it's more rural, 10 miles of your church, letting them know they can come to your church to get warmed up or to get food or to get other supplies. Because even though people are without power, they still are on social media. So I don't know where they're charging their phones, but they're figuring it out. But that's an example of why you might want to use a very cold audience, is if you're doing something for the community in a moment of crisis, because people have their phones with them. Now, I want to end with this before we dig into the questions or a live demonstration. And that is, if you can track it, you can measure it. And everything digital is trackable. And if you measure something, as a result, you can gain better understanding of your audience and their behavior, helping you to adapt your strategies to more effectively reach them. Because so when you take the time, and I know we're so busy, and oftentimes it's just everything you can do to even just place an ad, but you must take the time to review the performance of your digital communications and platforms so you can better understand what is working and what needs to be changed, because this empowers you to shape your digital communication strategy based on data. So you want to ultimately be making data-driven decisions with how you're promoting online and the kind of content you're creating and everything we've talked about. Because in the long run, this will save both time and money while maximizing your impact. So I'm not going to go into the details at this moment, but you can go to that resource link and you can dig deeper into this topic. the book also covers this topic extensively as well. And if you're curious about the book, you can always visit my website at jdim.digital/book. It's available on Amazon and through EvanSource in both digital and print forms. And then if you want to watch the archived versions of this video series, again, this is part 4. We have 2 more sessions to go through. The archived videos are on nadadultministries.org. So far, we've covered the digital mission field, the role of creators or content evangelism. We've covered engagers, community builders, and tonight we covered distributors. So next time, we're actually going to go into the foundations of digital strategy and then understanding your audience. But let's take a moment we're going to take a commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to do a Q&A and a live Facebook demonstration if that is something you'd want to see. And we have plenty of time for questions. I designed that intentionally so you can ask questions about any of the topics to date or just what we've discussed today. But I will see you guys back in a few minutes.
The Amazon Echo Dot is a hands-free voice control device that uses far-field voice recognition for voice-activated digital assistants. The North American Division Adult Ministries Department, with the aid of very talented Alexa programmers, has developed an Alexa skill for the Adult Bible Study Guide. This resource for the Echo Dot is in response to today's demanding, fast-paced society, delivering on-demand audio sharing and the daily Adult Bible Study Guide. As the program develops, there will be more commands and features programmed into the Adult Bible Study Guide Alexa skill. The North American Division Adult Ministries Department is proud to present this innovative tool for Bible study. This skill is now available in the Alexa Skill Catalog on Amazon.com.
Hello, and we have quite a few questions and feedback, so I'm going to start with going through those. So Sandra Willing from Facebook is asking, can conferences not develop these for churches in their area? Why should each church have to start from scratch? So I think you're talking about the custom audiences. If I'm not correct, just correct me. So it kind of depends on what you're going for. So I do actually think conferences should implement these digital strategies as well. And they should have an engagement strategy in which they partner with the local churches to be able to feed people into the local churches. They should have a content strategy because conferences obviously have the budget and maybe access to resources to create the kind of content local churches cannot. And as far as advertising, the conference can certainly, do some advertising and stuff for various bigger things that are happening throughout the conference. But when it comes to sort of your individual audiences for Facebook, you'd want to create your own customized audience and dynamic audiences based on the kind of initiatives and stuff you're doing at your church. Because if in a quick fix, you have to reach everyone within like 5 miles of your church or something, that's not going to work for something for the conference to do. But if the conference, if you were partnering with the conference, which I would strongly encourage you do, and there's initiatives and stuff going out, let's say in like a crisis situation, then the conference could certainly be a partner in that. Shouldn't we be able to make some ads that cover all the ideas you just mentioned? Yes, I think every church should be able to place some ads that cover those ideas. But again, this is where I want to go back to that partnership idea. So one church might have a great food pantry. Another church might have a thriving young adult program. Another church might have a great VBS program. And especially, I think you mentioned that the churches in your province are mostly small and they don't have enough people to cover essential ministries, never mind a tech expert who can, create web content or social media. So here's the thing. This is where I would love to see churches stop working so independently and in silos. And this is the idealist part of me coming out, to be quite frank. But every church might have their strengths. So instead of every church trying to do everything, why don't churches partner and leverage each other's strengths? So if you have one church, like I said, has a great VBS, then all the churches can be partners in promoting that VBS program. If another church has like a food pantry or is doing an evangelistic series, the churches could rally together in a pod essentially and help promote that. And you guys could actually work together. Maybe one church has like a vlogger or a youth pastor that's doing really great vlogs, and the other churches could all share that content. Because remember, when it comes to sharing content online and content evangelism, curation is legitimate. Like, you don't have to create all your own content. So if you can build those strategic partnerships with churches in your area and actually share content, then you can do so much more by reusing that content, and then everybody's content gets passed around and actually has greater impact because you guys are working together in partnership. And so the burden isn't on each individual church to do everything, to meet all the needs, to create all the content, to do all the advertising, to do all the engagement and the community services, so that you guys are actually working in a partnership so that each church has a focus or a strength and you're all feeding off of each other. That's the idealist, because I understand that it's frustrating knowing the opportunities out there, and every church has different strengths and different resources, and people are resources. So if you have a ton of small churches, maybe one church has a really talented teenager in video, and another church has someone interested in podcasting, and someone else has someone who's a designer who creates really beautiful graphics with like pull quotes or Bible verses. Each church, individual at that church, can create that content, and then if the other churches share it and pass it around, that's a way to actually do more efficiently, if you will. Are there any other questions? I hope that helps. I know this, for some, that might be kind of a radical idea to actually start working in intentional partnership with other churches instead of trying to do it all and realizing how limited we are. Because I was speaking with someone this week, and we were going through how they could optimize their YouTube channel. And this church member felt very discouraged because they're like, we weren't doing any of this stuff. And they felt bad about it. And I was like, look, if you run across somebody who says they know everything about the digital mission field, they're wrong. You can't possibly know everything, and you can't possibly do everything. But what you should do is identify the strengths of your church and put your efforts behind that, and then find other partners that can fill in the gaps. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so she's saying that I do think partnering with other churches is a great idea, and I think the conference can help a lot with this as well. Exactly. I think the conference can also help facilitate, and the conference can actually also be a content creator, and they can also help with various ways of promoting and creating community engagement. So from Paz Mission Wayke, we have, can you give us an idea how I can church attract how a church can attract volunteers? Well, I think the first thing you might want to do is just see if people have interest or an idea that where they want to participate. So one of the things I talked about, I think in one of the earlier sessions, is to do sort of an inventory of your resources. And that means human resources, asking them, how they want to get involved, how they see ministry, etc. And then leveraging their strengths and their interests that they already have. Youth tend to be very creative. Another thing you can do too, and this is where we have to become advocates for the digital mission field, and that is reframing how we view our time spent online and making it into a legitimate mission field. So sometimes volunteers are attracted by your own excitement. Sometimes people need to see what it looks like. So I think anytime you can hold up examples or show it in action and, you know, not praise in like a negative way, but uplift members who are already involved, already volunteering, letting people know that they are needed. I find that a lot of people are just really willing to step in and jump in and get involved if they feel like they are truly needed. So it might be just more like a communication thing, but I'd have to speak more directly with you to kind of understand the situation. All right. Thank you, Sandra. She says, I love your ideas and you did inspire me already to connect with people online. Good. Because even, I know that we have people watching from all over. Not all of you are church leaders. Some of you just might be individuals. You don't need permission to start connecting with others in the digital space. You don't need permission to start sharing the gospel, and you don't need permission to start improving the well-being of others by just being intentional and mindful and paying attention to what other people are posting. This is a ministry that anybody can do. My ideal is that churches become centers of influence for digital discipleship and evangelism, but individuals can do this on their own. Because remember that the Adventist church was largely founded as a grassroots movement. And unfortunately, we have become the Laodicean church in the fact that most people just observe church. We're not participants in it, but this is something that everybody can do. And I do believe that a lot more people would be involved if they saw their place. And so as leaders, we can cast that vision and say, you can do this. We need your help. You can be a part of a legitimate ministry and you can make a difference. You can share testimonies. You can share stories of the experiences that other people have on time. For our personal ministry that my husband and I have, Angels in the Glen, we get testimonies almost daily from people who are touched by the messages, who are now convicted to keep the Sabbath because of the content that we've shared online. And that really keeps us going because it is hard. Oftentimes it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to say, it doesn't really matter. But I will say this again, you need to be consistent and you need to be persistent because it takes time. Now, if we don't have any other questions, I actually can take you guys into Facebook real quick just to show you what the ads module looks like for those of you who have never seen it before, or those of you who are just like curious and maybe not that familiar with it. So let me see here. There. But if you have other questions, just drop them into the chat in the comments below the YouTube video or the Facebook, and I'll address those as well. So when you open your ads manager, now this is different from boosting a post. You want to actually go to facebook.com/ads manager. You have a lot more options for customization and ads. So if I'm just going to do like a mock ad for you, this is sort of a blank account that I use for testing and stuff. So let's say, for example, you wanted to promote a children's program or something like that. So what you're going to do is you're going to want to pull people to your website to learn more about your VBS program. We'll name it. I'm just going to do this as example. Click onto it. And I'm going to show you how to target actually parents within a particular region. If you guys have other audiences you want to see, just type in the comments and I'll show you how to do that as well. I actually really love doing the live demonstrations. So special ad categories, that's if you want to do anything for credit, employment, housing, social issues, elections, or politics. For a lot of churches, if you're talking anything about social justice, if you want to talk about abuse, if you have any of those kind of causes or anything like that, you would have to apply to be able to do the special ad category. So I've actually had to do this a number of occasions for certain campaigns that I'm involved with. And sometimes it's surprising, but like religious liberty, we had to do it as well. Any kind of social issue, Facebook has a very low threshold for that. And all you have to do is basically show that you're a legitimate person working in the United States. You have to submit your license to them. And so they just realize that you're not. So they know for certain that you're not like a Russian bot spreading misinformation. Here you can set your budget. I don't recommend a daily budget. I always do a lifetime budget, because if something happens to you or you get busy and you forget about the ad, it's just going to keep going in infinitum. So we're going to do a lifetime budget of, let's say, $25. And we'll go next. So this will be a limited time ad budget. We're going to drag people to the website. You can do dynamic content, which is really cool. Those are really complicated ads, but we don't have to do that for now. So we're going to run this ad, let's say from tonight to it's just $25. Let's say we're trying to get some last minute people to register for our VBS, which is randomly in March. We're just playing pretend. So I'm actually going to do like that. Now, if you want to, you can actually limit time of day. So if you don't want to run advertisements on Sabbath, you can actually block out the Sabbath, just for those of you who are concerned about that in your time zone. So now this is where we're going to do location. So I'm going to type in the location of my church, and you can choose, people living in this area. For something like VBS, you'd want to probably choose people living in the location, or recently in the location. You could be recently people traveling if you're doing like vacation spots or something, or your own personal Airbnb, but that's not really relevant for ministry. So we're going to do it by an address. Yeah, it is. Okay. So this is our church's address, and you can do within location. It's a densely populated area, but we're going to do VPS, so we're going to target it down. So right now we're going to do within 10 miles. That's about 820,000 people. That's a lot of people, but we want to target parents for our VPS. And so we can go into detailed targeting, and you can actually browse demographics. You can type stuff in, but you can also browse demographics. You can choose parents. I love showing this one because almost every church has a VBS. And so they get really amazed that you can actually target parents based on the age of their child. So let's see, you got one for preteens. Oops. This is being a little slow. Let's say you have a VPS for all children. And so we're just going to type all these guys in. You just click the ones that are relevant for your age groups. So this would be for those of you trying to target parents of college kids. That's a good age group for you. New parent, we don't have a program for them. So now suddenly our audience has dropped down to 35,000 people. So that's really helpful. And you can actually narrow the audience more. Let's say you only have 10 spots left. And so you're just really trying to make it available to, let's say, Seventh-day Adventists. Because yes, Facebook knows who the Adventists are. So Seventh-day Adventist Church. And so that's 1,000 people that you can run a targeted ad to promote your VBS. Now, if you want to be broader and you're just Christians in general, you can do Christian denominations. And this is where I have to publicly spell and I get nervous. So now that's 3,500 people that you can market your VBS program to. So let me take a look at the chats and see if we have any questions. Oh, someone's just saying, I think we have no other choice than to use several social media in order to accomplish our mission these days. Exactly. And if you were in our first session, you probably heard me say, I believe that while God doesn't cause the bad things in this world, I believe he uses them. And so I believe he's using COVID so that we can learn how to do church outside the confines of time and space in a building, because God's kingdom isn't once or twice a week during prayer meeting and during worship service. It is a 24/7 kingdom that should be meeting the spiritual, the physical, the mental well needs of people. It should be moving people through their spiritual journey. And we should be actively sharing the gospel. We can do all of those things without even leaving our house. And for many people, this may never change. Some people cannot actually be vaccinated. So does that mean they could never travel again? So we have questions and stuff like that. Like, I'm someone who can't be. So does that mean I can never get on a plane again? Like, like we have so many questions to gravel with as society right now. And so I think COVID will forever change our society and how we function. And but that shouldn't stop us from ministry. In fact, I think it's opening a whole new door to a broader ministry where we can reach people around the world. Like, I know digital missionaries, and we talk and we speak about stuff, and we're reaching people in China. We're reaching people in Hong Kong. We're reaching people in not Arab countries, but Muslim countries. We're reaching people around the globe. And this is something that we can really do in a big way. So that's just a quick demonstration. I encourage you, open up Facebook's Ads Manager, start playing around with the detailed targeting. You can look at the browse options. You can also type in stuff, find ways to really narrow down your audience so that your ad dollars will be well spent. Because I would love to see people really leveraging our distribution channels, these digital distribution channels, to spread the gospel, to reach certain groups of people with the services that we have that can meet their felt needs. So yeah, with that, honestly, guys, I'm really excited. Thank you for joining me tonight. Next time, which is in 2 weeks from tonight, we're actually going to go through the foundations of a digital strategy for our ministry. This is an important session for church leaders. This is an important session for ministry leaders or even individuals who are looking to launch their digital ministry and figuring out, how do I structure it? How do I even cast my vision? How do I get started? So this is the foundation of a strategy, all the components that you need in place that you can put the digital discipleship and evangelism model on top of. So I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. God bless. And just remember, no matter how many people you're connected with, you have influence, and what you do with that influence matters. God bless you all.
Thanks, Jamie, for helping us to understand the role of distributors. Next time on Tuesday, March 9 at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, you're going to share with us how we can build a strong digital strategy for our local church ministries. And to our audience, we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Please keep on liking us on Facebook. We're loving that. And keep on subscribing to our YouTube channel and remembering to click the bell. And speaking of YouTube channel, if you'd like to get a copy of the previous webinars by Jamie Dom, you can do so on our website. That's nadadultministries.org, and also on our YouTube channel. You've been inviting your friends to participate with you at every time, and we want you to keep on doing that. Thanks for being with us. Let's seal tonight's webinar with a prayer. Loving Lord, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thank you for being with Jamie this evening. And we beg that you'd keep on being with all of us as we aggregate the digital process going forward. This is our prayer, and we thank you so very much. Jamie, it's been so wonderful being with you tonight. We're looking forward to you next time. And to those in our audience, please remember to be with us in 2 weeks right here. God bless you.